The following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network.
And now your hosts, Pete and Dave.
It is Ammo and Fletcher, and this is Streaming Star Wars. It is episode 22 here on Friday, May 8th, 2020. By golly, we've got here to the end of the week. It's hard to believe that, 5 days ago, it was May the 4th, and we were all losing our minds because there was director news and the movie news and comic news and all these things. But my goodness, we're right here to talk about all things Streaming Star Wars, because that's what we do on the show that's called Streaming Star Wars with Ammo and Fletcher. I'm Ammo. He's Fletcher. Fletcher, how are you?
I'm awesome, Ammo. How you doing? How are things going? Great show, by the way. The other night, you've done two this week. This is your third show this week on the network. I think you need a night off. So, you know what? Why don't you take tomorrow off and just relax a little bit?
I appreciate it. Maybe I'll just go and do the job that I'm actually paid to do. I'll just do that. I'll go.
Probably be a good idea. Not a bad idea. But yeah, I mean, geez, it feels like May the 4th was so much further back than just a couple days. It's been a crazy week. We got a whole bunch of great things to talk about, and more importantly, I think we have an awesome guest joining us this evening. But how are you?
Oh yeah. I thought we were gonna just say nice things about Clayton for 5 minutes before we bring him on the show. No, I'm happy, man. I just got, like I said, this was the first full week of the new job in Cedar Rapids. Got to do a really cool story today. It's funny because I just feel, obviously, we want our show to be an escape from the stuff going on in the world, because there's a lot of sadness, right, and there's a lot of stress, but there are good stories out there. And so I got to do a story today on a guy who was battling COVID for 49 days. He was hospitalized. He was hooked up to a ventilator, came really close to losing it, and then he fought back. And so I got to tell the story about how he did just that, and he put his faith in into God and to his nurses, and he pulled through. And so there were 200, 300 people that filled the hallways of the hospital and outside to cheer him as he got brought out to his car. So it was really exciting to tell a story of recovery, because we just we don't talk about that enough. So yeah, a really rewarding day. Really excited about just what's going on. My Mandy's upstairs. She's doing a cyber bridal party thing. I don't know. There were images I can't tell you about, but they're having a good time up there. She has a bottle of wine. Hey, can we talk about this? What are you drinking? What's the drink of choice this week here, Mr. Pete Fletcher?
My drink of choice is I've discovered this sort of bourbon barreled red wine, and I'm really enjoying it. It's got a nice little extra taste to it, but it's a nice Friday evening drink.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I also have, I'm a big fan of the Josh wine, because it's really affordable.
I have a couple bottles of those.
It's a bourbon barrel, and l'chaim. I'm not Jewish, but
you could be. Cheers.
I just wanted to have a glass that was bigger than Pete.
Yeah,
there's actually not a lot of wine in there. It's a fish bowl.
It's a big glass.
It's massive.
There's a couple goldfish hanging out in there. That's great.
Hey, we're just having a good time. It's Friday night. It's the end of the work week for you.
Oh yeah, and I'm ready to talk some Star Wars, because it just doesn't feel like there's been enough Star Wars talk this week. Holy cow! What a bit. I mean, this is the show that talks about Disney Plus related Star Wars, but I do want to take a second and mention how excited I am that Taika Waititi is going to be getting a Star Wars film. That just excites me to no end. I can't wait to see that, and I'm just excited that we're finally getting some movement there. I think that's exciting.
If I have seen such a massive push in the last 4 or 5 days to see him direct a High Republic era movie, which I don't think is what's going to happen. From my understanding, it's just a book and comic book crossover thing, which is still going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. But if you just think about what Taika, you see Jojo Rabbit, but then you see what he did with Thor Ragnarok, the vibrancy, the color spectrum that he does there. He's a strong writer, the great use of comedy. People don't like the dark comedy from the Mandalorian episode he directed. I thought it was pretty funny. I think if we mix all those things together, Pete, we could have a spectacular, you could do Old Republic. I don't think that we're going to go beyond episode 9 for a very long time. I could be wrong, but I think I think now they're forced story-wise to go back. So yeah, I guess that High Republic era or the Old Republic era are the two spots that we as fans look at. But no one was talking about 200 or 400 years before the Skywalker saga until Project Luminous truly got revealed, or as much as we know now. So they could come out in a week and say, nope, here's this other point on the timeline. This is where we're in a party, and this is where the movie's going to take place.
Yeah.
With Taika at the helm, it's going to be wonderful.
I can't wait. I'm very excited.
Okay, so you're not going to elaborate at all?
No, I'm not.
Because on the last 24 hours on social media, you were like, "I'm arguing with David because I think he's wrong."
No. I mean, this is the Disney stories. But I'll tell you what. I will say this. I do think
you're a lot nicer when there's other people watching.
I am. When I'm tweeting, I'm a completely different person.
Sure.
I'm a real bastard. But the different. I will say, yeah, I do think that lends itself as if we look at the prequels, they were a much different look and feel, very colorful, very. But Taika is. Star Wars is comedy. Star Wars works with comedy, is what I mean on that. And when there's humor done right, which Taika did so well with Thor Ragnarok, I think he's going to bring some awesome stuff to.
Party, man. Do you want to go together? I'll fly to Jersey, or will you come to Cedar Rapids?
You'll have to come to Jersey.
Are you kidding me?
Maybe I'll come to Cedar Rapids.
Make way more than I do. You should fly your butt here.
Let's see when it comes out. We'll see. We'll figure it out then.
Yeah, if we'll even be friends then. Will this show even exist when the Taika Waititi movie comes out? I hope to God. I don't know what else I'll do with my free time.
I'm sure will. Should we bring on our guest?
Yeah, I guess we should. Is he even still there? Is Clayton still there? Or
I can see him on the magic of the computer internet world. He is still sitting there.
He's debating.
Do you want to intro him?
Now I could ditch.
Well, why don't we just bring him in? We'll skip the fancy introduction. Let's say hello to ABC News correspondent, Star Wars expert, Mr. Clayton Sandell. Clayton, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank goodness you guys reminded me what day it is, because I have no idea, none whatsoever. You wouldn't think this would happen, but since we have been in this quarantine, self-isolation sort of thing, I, at least on 2 occasions, woke up in the morning, and the first thing I said to my wife is like, "Is it Tuesday? I think it's Tuesday, right? I think it's Tuesday."
Yeah.
Which I never thought in a million years would happen, but it's happened a couple of times. So
it is wild. It is so strange, and it's well, hey, if you ever want to know, just tweet me, and I'll let you know what day it is. That's the one thing that I'm doing well lately is keeping track.
That's excellent. Yeah,
so speaking of days, how was your May the 4th be with you? How did you celebrate Star Wars Day?
It was good. It was actually really busy, but I loved all the news that you guys were just talking about with Taika. I thought, you said a minute ago that humor done right, and it's funny because I told us several people that when his movie comes out, I think it'll be the most fun of any Star Wars movie that's been out before, which is, I think, critical. Star Wars is these movies are supposed to be fun, and I think he'll do it. I think he'll do it really well. And then it just came coming. There was the Leslie, is it Headland?
Yep. Yes.
News that she's developing a show too. So we got we had a bounty of great Star Wars news come out on Monday, and I kind of watched it go by and watched people. I posted a picture of my dog playing lightsabers with my son. I mean, that was my sort of contribution to the content for that day because we were working on other things. But the one thing that I did for me on Star Wars Day, and I should preface this by saying I'm not really a collector of stuff. Most of this stuff behind me is like my son's toys, and a half an hour before I sit down with you guys, I go racing around and I find out, what's close by, and I kind of arrange it in the background, and it looks nice. But the one thing that I did do for myself on Star Wars Day, found this on Facebook Marketplace.
Wow!
Baby,
so
this was the thing. This was the shuttle that only the rich kids had when I was growing up. It's like you always wanted the shuttle, never had the shuttle. Happened to run across it the other day on Marketplace, so I picked that up.
Wow!
It's not even. It's like sitting in some guy's garage. It's like dusty. I haven't even cleaned it off yet. But,
that's authentic.
Yeah. I was very happy with that. I mean, it's huge. It's a Star Wars vehicle.
And it's got I always remember that it's got the handle for the landing gear, so you could ride it on your arm. And
yes, exactly.
Wow.
The wings drop.
Come down. Wings drop. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So
That's
anyway,
awesome.
I'll clean that up and get that on display here. But that was my Star Wars Day present to myself. Was
Hey,
picking up,
can I interrupt just one moment? So that was his May 4th. This is mine.
what'd you get? There you go.
This
Hey,
is a $3 Goodwill
Doesn't matter.
purchase that my friend gave me for moving away, and she's like, "Happy May the 4th," and I'm like, "This is so sweet," and I'm like,
that's beautiful. That's
Where's
beautiful.
my
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
But that's awesome though. I mean, that's classic. That comes in handy there. As long as we're talking classic, I have to show you my friend Andy from Holly Chronicles. He sent me this, and this is an actual 1978, I think.
I don't even have the coolest figure on the
first-
show right now.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
it's got the gun and everything. He sent it to me, so that's I really appreciate it. That sits right on my desk, and now we've irritated.
I love
it. So well, that's
Hey, let's move on from this depressing conversation because I'm feeling isolated right now.
depressing for you. I mean,
I guess so.
Clayton and I are left.
That shuttle is just massive. I feel like that's a what she said joke, but let's not go there. Hey, so a lot of
There
news
you go.
that we could pick on right now, Clayton, but I feel like maybe we should just go with what has broken with what the last 4, 6, 8 hours, and that's this idea that Tamar Morrison is going to be making an appearance in The Mandalorian. We believe they say it's Boba Fett, but it could also be Rex. It could also be a clone. It could be all three. How does that news land with you?
I'm irritated as usual with any spoilers. We may have talked about this before, how kind of anti-spoiler I am, and this just popped up out of the blue on the Hollywood Reporter site today. So I'm half considering muting them. If one of my best friends didn't work for them, I probably would. But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I think we kind of half expected maybe Boba Fett to show up. We don't know who was walking up to the body of Fennec Shand in that one episode. So I don't think it's necessarily a surprise that he's coming back. But as with all these things, I didn't want to know that there was a live action Ahsoka. Like it's a sort of a tricky balance. I love Star Wars, but I also want to be surprised by it when it pops up.
Do you like?
So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say what you were saying right there. Do you like the connectivity, though, or do you feel like the spoiler also kind of ruins that, how we're kind of getting the Clone Wars and the Mandalorian, and you're getting this crossover with maybe a Rex, maybe an Ahsoka?
I love the crossover. I love the crossovers. I think when it's done well, it can be really great. And I think the finale of Clone Wars is actually, I think, the best screen crossover that we've seen yet. I think they handled it really well. I thought it really enhanced and changed the story. So I love the crossovers. I just hate the spoilers. I just hate the spoilers just coming at you with no warning on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like if Ahsoka is in it, if Rex and or Boba Fett or whoever, anybody played by Tamara, because that's just it. I mean, Tamara, he could be any clone. He could be a clone. We don't know. But either way, if he's actually what's left, I do have to say, and I don't think we've spoken since we probably spoke right around at the beginning of the Mandalorian series. But that moment when the child shows up for the first time was maybe one of my favorite moments in movie entertainment history, because I had no idea it was coming, and either there's a lot more surprises coming in this series, or they've somehow lost control of the secrecy. Is it? What do you think of it?
I don't know if she's a major role or a minor role. I don't know if Boba Fett's going to be a major role or a minor role, but just the fact that I'll give you an example of another minor spoiler. There was a guy who was on a live stream the other day, sort of I would call him a bit player, bit actor who's in the show, and we've seen him before. He plays a creature more than anything else, but he said, well, I'm going to be, that character's coming back in season 2. And I thought, well, okay, so that's a fairly minor thing by itself, but if you know the character and you know what episode he appeared in, it reveals a whole chain of other things that tells you about season 2. So I kind of wish people would just shut up.
It's hard too because I think you want to be on the Star Wars Twitter feeds because you want to keep that community. But yeah, these things pop up and you're like, oh, I didn't want to see that.
Yeah.
Want to shout out?
Now, I know Ahsoka's definitely in it. So, but I don't know. I don't know if it's Boba Fett or Rex. It could be Rex. I think that's a strong theory.
I think that'd be great, especially when you have the fan push for so many years to try and make Rex the guy with the beard on the Battle of Endor. And I guess that did not become canon at some point, but it'd be really nice to see him come back and be Rex. Shout out from the chat. You have an admirer, Shannon Moran, is in the live chat, and she says, thank you for rocking that ILM shirt. It means a lot to her.
Hey, this is like, I don't have, I don't have a sports team. It's my favorite. I have ILM stuff that I rock. I rock the ILM hoodies and the t-shirts and the hats all the time. They're my team.
Am I wrong just to ask the question? Because I know that Pete has the next one, but you said, well, I'll just put it this way. What can you tell us right now about season 2 of The Mandalorian that we don't know about? And we'll give you this opportunity to give us a scoop. I mean, if you want to.
That's it. I have no inside information other than the Ahsoka live action. But
it's wonderful.
I haven't even. Again, I haven't. And the way that I found out about live action Ahsoka was also kind of by accident. I was talking to somebody, and it kind of got blurted out without warning, and I was kind of would have preferred to not know that one as well. But what I don't know, and what I don't even care to know, is who's playing her.
Okay.
Other than it won't be Ashley Eckstein, but that's I truly kind of go and block it out because it's the fan part of me. It's weird because it's this weird line to walk because you're my normal reporter life. It's like that's what we do. We make a million phone calls and track people down and ask questions and do all these things, and so it's kind of in our nature to do that.
Right.
But on the fan side of things, I want to be surprised. I want to enjoy it with the audience the first time, and I don't really want to know details. So it's you're sort of sitting in two different worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of details and wanting to know them, how's that for a good segue? I'm working on it. One day I'll nail the segue. But I know where some of the first work I saw from you was the Last Jedi or the Force Awakens audio, the Last Jedi audio
Last Jedi.
program. Yep. And I love that. And right now, I think all of us are in love with that new series, the Gallery series on Disney Plus, going behind the scenes of The Mandalorian. What are your thoughts on that? How does that strike you? I mean, the only thing I think is funny is that it's so soon after the show was out. It's like usually those things come much later, but I'm so excited that it's here. What are you thinking of it?
Oh, I love it. I love every bit of it. When Return of the Jedi left theaters back in 1983, thought Star Wars was done. And so I got into all of the behind the scenes stuff. And over on my shelf here, just out of camera range, is every single ILM book that's ever been written. That's what I dove into because I wanted to know how they did all this stuff that had just blown me away on screen as a kid. And so to kind of see this unfolding on this show in real time is great because normally, like you said, these things come out, as a special feature or something on a release years down the road. So the fact that they had the foresight, first of all, to realize that they needed to do this show and produce it kind of as they went, because obviously they didn't think of this after the fact. They had planned for this. And I'm really glad they did because there is such a legacy there with ILM and to think that 40 plus years later, it's still right there at the cutting edge of visual effects, and they are coming up with techniques and things that nobody else is doing. And I was just reading an article with Rob Brado today, who's the head of ILM, and how they've now taken this stagecraft volume virtual production system, and they're now offering it up to outside productions to do a similar thing. So I think it's great to see how all of that stuff works, and to highlight the people that do it. I love to see John Knoll popped up in episode 2.
Yes.
In the round table, which was awesome. Wearing, by the way, I have a shirt exactly like his, just incidentally. But it's great to see you have the big names involved in any production, right? From the actors to sort of the top creative folks. But I think as this show goes on, we're going to meet a lot more of the the grunts in this whole creative enterprise, from the costumes and the visual effects and the model makers and all of that, which I think is going to be super cool. So yeah, I'm pumped to see. I can't wait for the next episode. This is one where I liked The Mandalorian coming out week to week, because it kind of, everybody watched the episode, we talked about it,
right,
and then we had the next episode, and you kind of had that nice build up, and it was sort of a nice slow burn. This one, I want every episode right now.
Exactly. And I don't want to think that it's going to end in 6 weeks. I want just keep it coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like you mentioned, the foresight to be producing this docu-series in the moment while they're producing these episodes, and you mentioned the word legacy. I kind of like your perspective when you're doing interviews, maybe with like a Dave Filoni, or you're interviewing actors, or you're learning more about this series or that. What is the impression that you get from these creatives about the legacy? Because they're in the middle of creating history. It seems that's how it works with Star Wars. As we continue to innovate, we are kind of paving a path for future creators to follow. I was kind of surprised. Kathleen Kennedy said that when she joined the Lucasfilm effort, there were like 120 plus patents on file already. I didn't know that Robot Edit or Edit Robot was the
Android,
Avid. Crazy.
Yeah. Yep, Edit Droid, all of that stuff. And not only that, what's cool is that they're sort of, I love the fact that they're going back to the practical models.
Yep.
Like, if you're talking about honoring the legacy of ILM, what better way than to shoot the first live action series with real models, and going back to some of these things. It was like you saw some of the stuff. We haven't seen as much of it lately, but with like John Knoll and these guys placing their cameras, and they're running down tracks and things like that. I mean, it was just like the stuff we used to see on the old Empire Strikes Back, making of documentaries and things like that. But yeah, there's an incredible visual effects legacy there, and there's people that are still there. Dennis Muren is still one of the original guys.
Yeah, it's wild that they, with Kathleen Kennedy in today's episode, and it was funny, the sense I got, and maybe I'm projecting myself, but watching Dave Filoni at that table with that group, I felt like all of us who are that deep level Star Wars nerd were like feeling for Dave Filoni at that table, because he was just rattling stuff off, and he was just going with like, well, the Jedi are this and this and that, and you almost felt like, okay, Dave, I don't know if they're tracking with you, but that's great. I'm loving it. I was loving because like the scene from my favorite part of the first episode was when he makes some reference to Empire Strikes Back, and Filoni's like,
yes,
or Favreau's like, that's a deep cut. And I knew what he was talking about, but it gives you, the other thing that it does is it reinforces that this is Star Wars is being made by people who love the franchise and the movies and the history, and appreciate it in a way that we as fans want to. And yet I always use my dad as sort of the yardstick, because he's a big science fiction and horror fan. He's in his 70s. He's nowhere near the Star Wars minutia level that I am, but he enjoyed and really loved The Mandalorian. He didn't need to know every single piece of detail in the background, but it was still a great story. And it's proof that you can create those deep level history that exists within Star Wars. It can be there for those that want it and still create a great story.
It's funny you mentioned that moment, because it stood out to me as well, and I actually tweeted about it the other day, kind of in the context of you can love Star Wars and be totally into it and even make a Star War as Favreau is doing, without clearly him knowing every little bit of minutia and every little detail about every character and every ship and every weapon and all of that stuff that makes up Wikipedia, which is a great site. Don't get me wrong, but that level of you don't have to be. There's no Star Wars is for everyone, right? You love it,
right?
You like it. It's for you, and that particular scene just really drove that home. It was great.
Wonderful. Well, we mentioned already once, we kind of referenced it, Clayton, but let's go ahead and talk about that Clone Wars finale if you don't mind. We got a few minutes left. We might as well talk about the Clone Wars finale. And you mentioned how you think it's maybe the best on-screen crossover. Tell me about the Siege of Mandalore. How does that really land with you as
I really
a Star Wars
did, yeah. I thought it was great. I thought the way that it intertwines itself with Revenge of the Sith was great, and I don't think we've kind of gotten hints of that. We've got some crossovers here and there on screen, but I think this one was the deepest, most fully realized crossover, because it really you talk about a certain point of view, right? This really changed sort of perspective of who Maul is, who Ahsoka is, and I loved it. I loved that entire last set of episodes, especially I think it was episode 10. Was that the Apprentice, the Phantom Apprentice?
Yeah, the Phantom Apprentice. Yep.
I mean that episode. I don't know if you guys have a favorite. And I'd love to hear if you do. But that episode truly blew me away. It was great. There were for me so many parallels, not only to the prequels, obviously, but there's this whole like Empire Strikes Back feel to the end of it. Right?
Yeah, the battle in the rafters. And what's interesting, it's interesting to hear you say that, because to me it really captured what the best of Star Wars is. I mean, the music, Kevin Kiner's soundtrack for this entire series has been insane. Has been so good, but he incorporated the voices. It's got even the way the troopers looked and acted, and just that captured the whole thing.
He did a great job, and there is I'm convinced there's a Duel of the Fates cadence in there. I don't know. I'm not a music guy. I don't know what you call it. I need to channel my inner David W. Collins, but there is a moment there where there is, if you kind of it's almost like blurring your eyes a little bit, you can hear Duel of the Fates in there as they're going back and forth. But yeah, that rafter scene, I mean, that was straight out of Empire.
Yeah.
And it also had this sort of twist where, just like you thought you knew who Darth Vader was, you thought you knew who Maul was, and then he's got his own twist and reveal, which completely changes how you look at him. There were so many Empire, and maybe Empire's on my mind because we're coming up on the 40th anniversary, and I've been thinking about it a lot. But there were so many cool parallels that, knowing Filoni and knowing the script writers, these were not accidents.
Without a doubt. Yeah. So good, and it was a great way, I think, to wrap up the series, and where I thought you were going as well is the way Vader even looked. Like, I feel like they captured a great animated version of Vader. We haven't, like, the Rebels Vader was stylized. It was very much Ralph McQuarrie. But this was Vader, and they were able to portray emotion in that black mask very well, I thought. So,
getting a little hint of the eye behind the red glass there, and I thought it was extremely well done.
Very well done.
And the music, you mentioned the music. I thought the music was, he kind of channeled Vangelis a little bit, the Blade Runner feel there, but I thought it was perfect. It was just like, style-wise, really helped bring that, especially that final episode, right around. Just tonally, I thought it was right on.
Agreed.
There's a comment in the live chat that I might as well just go ahead and shout out. Steve says, Kiner is to John Williams what Filoni is to George, and I feel like that's a really accurate observation. Wouldn't you say, Clayton?
Sure, because Williams was, borrowed from famous composers and famous works back in the day, and I think Kiner's kind of had to do the same thing. He's not only drawing inspiration and direct, compositions from Williams, but he's building on that. He's doing a good job building on that, and also bringing in, like I said, some of the Vangelis-y, Blade Runner-y type sound for the last. But no, I think the parallels are. I think the parallel is apt. Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Well, Clayton, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And I know it's hard to find time, even when we're in quarantine. You're still very busy, as are a lot of us, surprisingly so. And I just want to thank you so much for taking some time to come back to us here on Streaming Star Wars and spend a little time talking about our favorite entertainment.
Yeah, guys, it was a lot of fun. I'd come back anytime. Absolutely.
Clayton, you're the best. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
And there you have it. Clayton Sandell with ABC News, talking a little bit of everything Star Wars here on Streaming Star Wars on episode 22 on a Friday night. And Pete, there's a few things that Clayton said that I'd like to react to at some point. But overall, I think it's just fun to just have another voice in the room, excited about what we got. I'm really happy with that conversation we heard about The Mandalorian. We can talk about it later, but yeah, I'm kind of like with him. I just want all those episodes now.
Yes.
Because of how incredible that series is. And I guess I'm on the opposite side of the fence of Clayton, because I like knowing that we are going to have Ahsoka. Like, I like hearing Clayton on the show say, we're going to have Ahsoka Tano in season 2.
Yeah. So wait, let's not let that go for a second. I haven't heard it officially confirmed, and he is. I don't want to get him in trouble or anything, but this is the first time I've heard anybody officially say Ahsoka is going to be in the show. Right? I mean, we've heard rumblings, we've seen the variety, we even heard Rosario Dawson say, "I can't wait till I can actually say something about it." But I haven't heard anybody with that kind of authority. Not that he is a Lucasfilm employee or anything like that, but I got pretty excited when I heard him say, "Yeah, Ahsoka's going to be in the show."
Yeah, did you see it? Did you see how I kind of like leaped forward in my chair?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing anything. I just got a little excited there. I got to move to the edge of my seat here.
I mean, somebody let Nerdist know that it's been confirmed on Beyond the
Do we have our first scoop in network history? This is exciting.
I don't know. That might be it. But no, I think between that and there's clearly a lot of excitement. And I love talking to somebody like him who has, he can pick up the phone and go hang out at Lucasfilm if he wants to, but he's so excited about it. And that's why we have a network. That's why we have people. That's why we spend time on Twitter all the time. Just because of that genuine excitement that I thought he brought.
And I'm gonna kind of feed the fodder here because I just tweeted that out. Hey, listen, I think it's great that we know that Ahsoka for sure now is going to be in the second season, and I think we look at that episode that we think is titled "The Sorcerer." There could be a lot of merit. And then, okay, so let's look at some of the other news that we have this week. Okay, because we also know that Peyton Reed is set to direct an episode of The Mandalorian season 2. He's an MCU guy.
Right.
He is, coming over. Okay, but also we learned about Rodriguez is directing as well. The guy who did Sin City. Oh, the guy who worked with Rosario Dawson in the past. You're starting to see these worlds combine. And listen, I'm not saying that it's for sure that, and I tried to make this point last night on BTBD Live. Just because Rodriguez is on the project doesn't mean that he's doing it because Rosario is joining, because Rosario is playing Ahsoka Tano, but you're starting to see these connections, and you can kind of start wrapping the strings around the pegs on the board here. And I think we're in for a really exceptional season 2. And my point, Pete, is I'm okay knowing that stuff. I think they put all their money in the child, and they kept that quiet, that $5 million investment quiet, and then the world blew up. I mean, the child is I got friends who don't know a lick about Star Wars. They know about the child. They're throwing memes out there with the child. Why? Because it's like cute, but kind of gross and green. And like it makes the noises.
I walked out of The Rise of Skywalker with my sister-in-law, who watches Star Wars only once a year when it comes out in the theater, because I take her son and my brother-in-law to go see it. And she said, wasn't there supposed to be Baby Yoda in this thing? So like so is it, are they dropping too many secrets, or is there more to it? Because it just feels like, they did such a great job. Look, when we had Dominic Pace on, he didn't even know. He was in a scene with the child, and he didn't even know that that's what they were blocking, right? So these, if you're going to let out of the bag that a clone, whether it's Boba or Rex or any clone, Tamora
both.
Morrison,
Or both.
or both,
Sir, good
or
sir.
all of them, or any of them.
There are going to be 37 Tamara Morrisons on screen. It is the remnants of the 501st.
It could very well
die
be.
in Clone Wars. It's because they're all living in that ATTE until they all, Gregor and Wolf and Rex actually had to eat the rest of them because there's no more food. I'm sorry.
That's unfortunate. But see, now I've totally forgotten where I was going. But that's okay.
You were saying how he could play Rex or he could
right.
play
Yeah. So they're giving all that away. They're giving away the Ahsoka bit. What else is there? Or are they just going to rely on this to be just a great show and hope that we're happy with just a great execution of what we expect to see?
Think about this. To me, it's all a distraction, right? Because the one plot point that we have not talked much about since the end of Mandalorian, because we're getting all this news, is the fact that Moff Gideon gets out of a TIE, cuts himself out of a TIE fighter with a freaking Darksaber. Listen, yeah, let's stack them up. Let's throw Ahsoka in there. Let's get Rex in there. Boba Fett, come on back. Hey, Sabine Wren rolling up. Going to try and get that Darksaber back. Okay, yeah, that's fine. We talk about it all the time, how we want to see this canon connectivity. This is the way to do it. Let's make it work on the live action big screen, or I got 42 inches at home. That's a big screen where I come from. I grew up in a house with 24 inches. But the point being is, make it work there. And then that's a way to hook people. Let's get them going to watch Rebels. Let's get them to go watch Clone Wars and learn the backstories of these different characters. This is the strategy. We're trying to expand. We're trying to expand the knowledge for the fans. If you make it work on the live action screen on Disney Plus, you will then explode within your fan base. People's knowledge. They will go out and seek these character backstories and these other properties that you've invested time and money in.
Yep, absolutely, without a doubt.
I got excited, Darksaber. But yeah, Moff Gideon. Like, think about it. What if you get Ahsoka Tano, Moff Gideon, get some Sabine Wren in there? I don't know. What if Boba Fett is that dude that rolled up on the body in season 1?
I'm still believing he is. I'm still believing he is. Yeah. Yeah.
Look at my eyes.
You're a little excited. And that's good. That's why we're here.
I don't know. Sometimes I think that I annoy Clayton. We've had him on the show a few times, and I never feel like I give him my best. And I just he likes you so much more. I think it's because of your facial hair. Okay. What's next? I'm all right. Compliments.
So we kind of we haven't spoken. We've built this entire show on Disney Plus shows, but we haven't spoken since the end of the latest Disney Plus show. We haven't spoken since the Clone Wars ended.
Yes. Wow. How about that?
And it's funny, we were saying before, and I don't know if we said it on the air or not, but it's wild that May the 4th feels like it was a month ago, but it was only a couple days ago when we got this episode, and we're still trying to deal with it and trying to work ourselves through. So we don't need to go through the story. Everybody's watched it by now. But I want to kind of talk a little bit about some points, and I want to reference on the BeyondTheBlastDoors.com website, Andy Lemire from Holochronicles posted an article that literally changed the way that I look at not just the series or the episode or the end, but the entire series, and possibly the way I even look at the saga. And I urge you to go check out the article in depth at BeyondTheBlastDoors.com.
I'm going to find it right now, actually, because I haven't shared it
pull it up
times today.
Excellent. So but within that series, or within that article, Andy mentions that is the moment at the end of Clone Wars when Anakin truly turns to Vader. Anakin has lost the last attachment he had to anybody at that moment when he realized or believed that Ahsoka was gone. Right? The symbolism of the I always say it wrong. The owl bird with a tail that flies around. Is it Kovar? You know what I mean. That thing. And he sees that flying while he is stuck in his metal armor suit and can't fly like the bird does.
Right.
It's the end of the last of his connection. By this time, I imagine Obi-Wan may or may not be gone, but he certainly disappeared. And the two women that meant the most to him in his life, his mother and his wife, are gone. They're dead. And so he's got, and now if his symbolic child, Ahsoka, is gone, he's got nothing left but to become full on Darth Vader. I'm doing Andy's article no justice. You should definitely check it out because it's an interesting perspective. Did you respond to it that way as well, or no?
No, I really did. I thought Andy did a really exceptional job. I'm really tired of Andy being like, I don't like to write. I don't like people reading my writing. I don't know how to write because it's trash. His writing is great, and it's really interesting. And I loved how he weaved in the latest arc of Clone Wars. Yeah, I think that Anakin holds on to this shred of hope because at the core of it, he's just trying to protect the one he loves.
Yeah.
Because he's lost so much love in his life before. And I think it goes back to being a slave child and having to leave his mother behind on Tatooine and getting adopted by the Jedi Order in a way and not being able to learn under Qui-Gon and having issues with that and how hard Obi-Wan was on him and how Anakin felt challenged by the Order. And then this, like, I had this relationship with the Chancellor that no one approves, but he seems to think that I'm actually capable of the things that I want to be capable of. And so it just continues to be manipulated. And at the core, it's always about this girl. It's always about some girl. And and in this moment, I think like you said, and how Andy says a lot better than what you and I could say in this moment, but Ahsoka's that last thread holding him to that prior life. Padme's dead. He's more machine now than man. The Emperor is in control. The Jedi Order is gone. The last bit of the puzzle of his past was Ahsoka. And part of me wonders when you see this epilogue play out in Clone Wars, Pete, when Vader holds the saber of his Padawan.
Yep.
Does he hope that she's gone? Or is there still a shred of hope inside that helmet, inside the mind of Vader, that maybe Ahsoka is still out there?
Well,
I was just going to say, I just think that connects really well, or it sets up really well their encounter in Star Wars Rebels, where you get part of the mask blown off. You see the eye of Anakin. There is man still in there, and Ahsoka is faced with this complex that we now know because of this last season of Clone Wars. It goes back to then because it's this dilemma of the clones' betrayal and the faults of the Jedi, but the trying to maintain balance. It just it really, the synergy there is exceptional. It brings me a lot of joy as a fan. I think that I don't think this is going to happen anymore. I really don't, because of the runtime of the individual episodes. But I really wish the Siege of Mandalore would just be smushed as one movie and thrown up on a Disney Plus. I was hoping for a theatrical release. I don't think it's realistic, but my goodness, it'd be great. And please, somebody, when we have the cut of the Siege of Mandalore arc smushed with Revenge of the Sith, send that link my way, babe, please. I'm gonna watch that.
Not that we're encouraging anybody to do anything against copyright, but
no, it's parody, isn't it? Isn't like parody or something?
I don't understand copyright laws, but one of the other things about the lightsaber moment that I thought was really interesting, and actually I connected with it the moment I saw it, and then when I read Andy's article, I was even more struck by it. But there's only 2 times on screen we see Vader hold the lightsaber other than his own, and that is Ahsoka's and his son's. And he looked at Ahsoka's saber in a very similar way to the way he did when he captured Luke, or Luke turned himself in. It just, that recognition that the lightsaber, that's an extension of that person. It means something more. It's not just a weapon, right? It's not just it's an extension of who that person is. And if you think about it also from the way Ahsoka just dropped it, she realized at that moment she could no longer be a Jedi. She could no longer do what the Jedi had become. This was the only choice. I mean, gosh, let's think about it. You and I, if we were left, we just came out of what just happened there. I'm going to keep my weapon with me wherever I go. From that,
absolutely.
I'm not dropping my last lightsaber, but she did it because she had to.
And I think that's a really great point that you make there, and a great interview. I think, oh man, was it Deadwire? Oh man, I just did a write-up on this on the website. I'll pull it up. But there was an interview that we just had come to fruition. This happened over at Deadline. Thank you, David. Thank you for having a memory. Deadline, where he was talking about the motivation behind this scene. Why was the lightsaber dropped by Ahsoka? Was it really faking the death? It's like what you said. leaving the Order behind, the Order that had failed her. There's maybe a better way to bring balance to the galaxy, not continuing to fight in the name of the Jedi or to fight a war in general. And it's this idea, this notion that he shares with George. Like, George had involvement with this whole playing out. George's view is there were some Jedi that were able to see the flaws and the imperfections of the Jedi that led to the downfall, that led to the galaxy becoming victimized by the Sith.
Well, even Filoni said it.
Left their lightsabers to go and try to find a different approach to saving the day.
Well, even Filoni said in today's episode of the Gallery show that when he talked about it, which if you haven't watched it yet, you have to. It's
Absolutely.
worth the entire series is worth it. I haven't seen the last 6, but the entire series is worth it for the last 5 minutes.
Do better.
Where Filoni just talks about the Phantom Menace and the battle, the Duel of the Fates battle, and he says that Qui-Gon was going to be his father figure. Qui-Gon believed more so than the Jedi that you can still love and that you can still give. And he said, and then Yoda started to realize it, which is really interesting because it is that note that recognition that the Jedi Order, the Jedi rules, don't apply to everything, and maybe they're flawed. And I think that's what the Star Wars series has become. You know, the first 3 films, we watched them and we had this belief that the Jedi were this noble group of warriors that could do no wrong. You add the prequels and suddenly you realize that the Star Wars saga is about sort of the perils of pride and the perils of believing you're right and losing touch with what reality is. And Ahsoka dropping that saber is just her saying, you know what? The Jedi aren't right. And I'm going to go. And I love that. I think that's fantastic.
It was really well done. And what brings me a lot of joy is I remember a lot of the times that Dave Filoni, when asked after the conclusion of Rebels, he would people would ask him, is there more to Rebels? And he would say, no, this is complete story, 4 seasons. Wish I had that opportunity with the Clone Wars. And then to be able to go back, I'm happy for Dave because I think as a creative, anytime you create something, you want to be able to finish it. You want your vision to be there, whether if you're an artist, you're painting, you want that to match what you see in your head. And what I do for work, like I interview people. There's a story there. I want that story to work out. Heck, with this network, like we wanted all of our friends to get together and do a podcast network. We're doing it. We're having a lot of fun. That's intensified like 10 times, 100 times for Dave Filoni, for him and crew to go back and finish out that series. The Siege of Mandalore is the ending that George and Dave and cast and crew wanted the series to have. It is now complete.
Yep.
There's maybe some spots in there, right, that we get elsewhere in books or comics, and that's fine. But to see the Siege of Mandalore on screen, it was really moving. It was really fun, and I really do think that, to me, it's my favorite Star Wars of the last decade. And I don't say that to insult anything that's been released, by elsewhere, or what you think is your favorite Star Wars story. Like, we always talk about any show on this network. We all get the opinion. We all get our opinion, but we all should respect each other for that opinion. And to me, Siege of Mandalore, man, the finale of the Clone Wars, that's the best Star Wars we've gotten in a very long time.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And even Clayton was talking about how anytime you can compare anything to Empire, it's well done. And he wasn't wrong. It wasn't hyperbole. He was spot on. Those episodes were fantastic. I would like to see them all strung together. And I would not be surprised if Disney does that. They might as well. There's a lot. There's not that there's there's a lot of hiatus right now. So put some people to work and do that. So
something that was really cool here. We're spending some time on Filoni, and I think it's fine. I think it's appropriate based on where we are in the world and just wrapping up the series. I like how he said the intention, and we were talking about legacy with Clayton. The legacy of Revenge of the Sith. Say what you want, it's by far the best of the trilogy, and I really like Phantom Menace, but I think Revenge of the Sith is by far the best of the prequel trilogy, and I think it stands up there just as well with A New Hope or Empire for different reasons. But the legacy of that movie is not altered by Clone Wars. And Dave Filoni was not trying to tell a story that would change or alter Revenge of the Sith. I think in some ways it enhances it. I think Order 66, like I would show someone the Clone Wars episodes first, right? Because it kind of sets it up. And then I'd have them watch Revenge of the Sith. Because I think what you see now in the movie is enhanced drastically, and I think it gives you the emotions and the feelings and the scale that I think George was trying to give originally when that movie dropped in 2005.
So I want to take a moment to share a really interesting to me story about my son watching Clone Wars, because it's interesting you say that you would show that before you show Revenge of the Sith. So my son, he's 7. He's watched Star Wars, but he's sort of like, he's watched it here and there. He loves Clone Wars. When it was on Netflix, that was when he discovered Clone Wars. He really enjoyed Resistance. He liked Rebels, but it was because it was accessible, and it was something that he and I would do every Sunday night. We would watch Rebels, or we would DVR it and watch it Monday night. But it was more because it was a ritual that we had. And again, he enjoyed Star Wars, and he was several years younger. However, when Clone Wars was coming back, that was when I started rewatching Clone Wars, and he got really, really into it. Now, it was my belief, and it's funny because you believe that, for example, like when I coached his T-ball team, you forget that baseball is my life. But you got to teach a 5-year-old that you go to first base, then second base, then third base, then home. It's part of our life, but to them it's not. So part of our life is we know the clones turn. We know that Order 66 come and the clones turn. Jack did not. Jack was a gigantic fan of the clones. He loved Cody. He loved Rex. He loved to walk around the house with 2 Nerf guns and pretend he was Rex. I got him a couple of Clone Troopers action figures that were white. He took his magic marker and he made them into Jungle Troopers. And but he was so all in on Clone Wars. He loved the clones. He loved them as good guys. So after on the evening of May the 4th, he hadn't watched Shattered, so we watched Shattered and Victory and Death together. And when the clones turned, he was stunned. He was sad and disappointed, and he looked at me, and his actual quote, which for a kid who's 7 years old, it was a very deep thought. He said, "Dad, they're usually shooting the robots, and now they basically are the robots." And
Yes.
And he was stunned. He was stunned that they turned, but he was also, it was hard for him to handle. And I didn't think it would be, because I knew it was happening. And I didn't even think that he didn't remember Revenge of the Sith. And he loves those. So imagine watching. So I've been so lucky to have kids and watch Star Wars, because for me, I've now been able to witness through Jack what it really means that the clones turned. Not just that we knew it was going to come and they were these faceless warriors, but what it really means. And through my daughter, I got to see the recognition that Palpatine and Sidious were the same. She didn't get that until Revenge of the Sith. So to see, I went through the I am your father thing myself. So the big revelations in Star Wars, I've been able to go through in different ways. And it's such an amazing thing. But the point of the story here is that the Clone Wars as a show, the clones as troopers were so well done that my son loved Cody and Rex and Fives and everybody, and their tragedy was felt more by him than it will ever be felt by me, because to me, I knew it was coming.
Yeah, I think your experience definitely gets multiplied because you get to witness it through the eyes of your children, and I think that's even cooler because I don't know. I think my moral code in a way was developed because of Star Wars, and so like now you're seeing your kids question, oh wait, they were good, now they're bad, and how they are now they're falling victim, and now they're the very thing that they were trying to defeat. These are very interesting philosophies and lessons in morality that like Jackson it has to like deal with now. And I think that's super cool that you get to be with him for that. Yeah. And I just think it's a higher level of learning that you get with Star Wars. It's not just lightsabers and spaceships. You know, when you try and dumb it down, that's what we like. You know, the spaceships and the adventure and the lightsabers and things. But there is that morality. There is the philosophy that is the bedrock of the story that you're watching. And yeah, I think it's incredible when you have the opportunity. The cliche hindsight is 20/20. Well, what if you had the opportunity to use hindsight to go back? and unlearn what you have learned.
Right.
That's what they got to do with Clone Wars. That's what they got to do here with Rebels, with Clone Wars. They're doing it now with The Mandalorian. They're going to do it now with whatever next series they announce, with Kenobi, with all these different projects. Hopefully we get the Cassian Andor. You get to go back and you get to expand. And this is a really great time to be a fan, a great time to be a dad fan. A fan dad? What do we call you?
I think we'll call me a
dad fan? A fan dad?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a lot of work.
Fan dad. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But no, it's super cool. And you think about some of the things that Clayton again said about legacy and taking care of what's been created and still trying to be a pioneer, still trying to expand the technology and the storytelling. We're getting to witness that unfold, and I think it's wonderful, and I think it's why there's people like us who'd like to get together on a Friday night and set up light kits and cameras and have YouTube shows, because we really enjoy the Star Wars.
We do enjoy an occasional Star Wars. Yes, this is true. Well, I'm sure. I mean, we could spend weeks talking about Clone Wars, but your glass is getting low, and
there wasn't a whole lot. I think this is honestly why Clayton might not like me a whole lot, because we drink on the show, but when he's on the show, I've noticed that you never hold up your glass of wine.
No, because
I'm always
well.
So he probably thinks I'm an alcoholic and I'm immature, which is a real shame, because I admire him a lot.
It's funny. I was doing an interview for Around the Galaxy for next week, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to do a drink. That's my streaming Star Wars thing, and I'm gonna be professional. It's only a gimmick. This is just grape juice, and I don't partake in it. I am full of garbage.
Yeah,
but so I'm talking to my my interview, and he's like, all right, he goes, do you mind if I have a sip while we're doing our interview? I was like, absolutely not. What are you drinking? He's like, oh, whiskey sours. I was like, oh man, that interview would have been so much better if I was drinking
right. What does that say about your guest? I guess I'm not watching Around the Galaxy.
No, it's a good one. It's a really good one.
Should we dive into live chat real quick? I think there's a couple of things we want to talk about still, as far as network stuff, but should we dive into live chat a little bit?
Yeah, let's definitely do that.
Talking about your conversation about the lightsaber and how it's an extension of the individual. Greg Cass. Believe Greg Cass is now a Patreon supporter, if I remember that correctly. This weapon is your life. Yes, that Obi-Wan quote. And the lore, how it's expanded the crystal and the connection it has to the Jedi or the Sith, how it is an extension of the person, and the blade represents the relationship there. Oh yeah, definitely resonates there a lot. Inner Force historian, Obi-Wan was wrong. The lightsaber doesn't have to be your life. And maybe that's the lesson Obi-Wan learns himself through his relationship with Satine.
Perhaps. I like that.
Tumet2. Andy wrote something. Yeah, Tumet2. Andy wrote a bomb-ass article. It's on beyondtheblasters.com. You need to read that article because it's life-changing. Pete Fletcher cried on May 8th, 2020 on Streaming Star Wars because of how beautifully written it was. Now that said, I think everybody should tweet at Andy and at Holochronicles and ask why the hell they weren't watching tonight's show, because we sing their praise a lot tonight and they weren't here. So make sure you give them help. Somebody spelled my name wrong in the live chat. That's exciting. Daniel's hot topic. So excited that Boba Fett is back. Tamara Morrison returns in The Mandalorian. Pete, I think that's going to be the story that overshadows a lot for the near future. You're bringing back an icon in Star Wars to reprise some role. It's either a clone trooper, it's Boba, it's Rex. It could be all three.
Yep.
Wild.
Yeah, and I wonder. Yeah, my first thought, of course, when you think Tamora Morrison, you think Jango, which then makes you think Boba, and then after 5 minutes, it struck me that perhaps it was it could be Rex or it could be any clone. But I need to point this out because it's important. Yeah. Nerdist actually had this story before anybody else this morning at like 9 a.m. and I was going through and they led with it as a Rex story, and I was like, oh, okay, good. I mean, I like Nerdist a lot. They do a really nice job, but I just want to make sure that people know that we're not alone in thinking it. It's a lot of it. It took me like 5 minutes to get to it, but I would actually. So here's the story I want. You're holding up your pen. I'm sorry, but the story that I want is I want Ahsoka to have to deal with Boba Fett and Rex. to be with Rex, to her most trusted partner, at times more trusted than Anakin, but also reconcile Boba Fett, who is the actual son of the clone that started it all. I just think that there's so much potential, and maybe that's why they've told us that they're going to be in the show, because that's going to be such a big story. We don't want to lose it in the shock.
I think the moral complexity to that situation would be just so juicy. That'd be so great, Star Wars. That would be delightful, and it would challenge Ahsoka in a way that we've seen Ahsoka push a few times, like the duel with Vader in Rebels. We're seeing her pushed here in Clone Wars. That would be a great situation to see her push towards. I said this, I think last night. I said this at some point. Ahsoka Tano is this generation's Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I would say so. Yep.
And so I'm very interested in seeing how Ahsoka handles that, because, I guess, you can say the saga films you see through the eyes of R2-D2 and C-3PO, even though they weren't really a factor in the sequel trilogy, but you see the Clone Wars series through the eyes of Ahsoka Tano.
Yep.
And you go on this journey with her. And so, I would be very fascinated to see if you push her to her moral bounds. I think it would be incredible, because the recognition, and clearly she had a challenge here in the final episode of the Clone Wars. There was second to last episode had some challenge here. Well, I guess both of the episodes, trying to figure out where her loyalties were. Is it more important to pull back Maul, or is it more important to deal with these clones? And now, if I'm dealing with the clones, how do I deal with these clones? It's just awesome. And then you put the Rex dynamic in there. A clone aware of the situation and trying to fight his programming, going back to what your son said. These clones have been raised from birth to become the very unit they were trying to destroy on the battlefield. Just these mindless robots, these mindless droids. That's what the Grand Army of the Republic ultimately becomes. Very fascinating. It's all just very fascinating.
Yeah, before we go too far away and start to wrap up, does anybody know, and I'm going to look to the live chat, and I know the answer won't come immediately, but do we know, two questions at the end of that episode, at the end of the series, how far after Clone Wars, after the Order 66, the Vader scene was, and do we know what planet or moon? It's a moon. They were being sucked into the orbit of the moon, but do we know where it was and when it was? I know it's not important to the story. I'm just more curious than anything else.
There was a meme that was going around that suggested, it was in this, like, in the height of the Empire. And then I thought I read something, and do not quote this, I could be very wrong, but there was something that I read that said it was Elam, which would be wild, because that's also the same planet Star Killer.
Yep.
I think that Star Killer base is made out of. So, you're looking at the trooper design. Somehow it kind of feels like a New Hope-ish Empire, but it might be before the OT.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just interesting. And what I loved about it was it kind of put your mind, back to even to Andy's article. The thing that made that ending so good was the ending of so many series, right, have disappointed so many people, right? There were people did not like the end of Game of Thrones. People did not like the end of Dexter. And I was worried. I really was worried that we were not going to be happy with the ending of Clone Wars, just because I didn't know how they would end. Honestly, when I saw that they had jumped ahead in the timeline, my first gut reaction was, uh-oh, where's this going? And by the time that scene ended, I was like, there was no better way to do it, because what it did was it then, and we won't go into it today. Maybe we can make a special episode next week, because there's not going to be much to talk. Well, we thought there wasn't going to be much to talk about today, and look at all the news that came out. But I would like to dig into, now that and not tonight, but we'll do it next week. Maybe we'll tease next week. Next week, let's talk about the role that Clone Wars plays in the saga. And I will stop there, because if I go, we'll start for another whole hour. We'll just cut. And we'll just put it this week. But I'd like to talk about the role that Clone Wars plays in the saga now, because I think that series matured so much and changed the way we look at a lot of things. And that's the last I'll say about that. But I think that's why I'm curious about if we know where and when it was, just because it's more for my own knowledge. I'm just more curious than anything. I don't think it changes. I don't think it would change the impact.
Right. Somehow you have to think it has to sync up with Rebels just because of the Force creature, right? But
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe that's something for us to learn in the very near future. I just want to say, yeah, I think the Clone Wars is must watch.
Yeah.
I think you're really trying to appreciate the prequels because I think George's vision, his appetite to storytell, just grew too vast. What he was trying to do, I don't think what he wanted to do. I think it came too early. I think the prequels came a little too early. But that said, I just think it's mandatory. And again, I think seasons 4 through 7 is some of the best Star Wars you'll ever watch. And yeah, I wonder what is next. I do wonder what is next because Filoni also came out and said that the Rebels spin-off series might not be as soon as we are to believe. So very interesting there.
Interesting. Good.
Well, hey, man, it was a Friday night, a lot of fun. Yeah, I was right. Elam is the base for Starkiller Base. Thank you, Gannon 136 in the live chat. Booyah. It's a Friday night, and we got together, did some streaming Star Wars, had a lot of fun. Big thanks again to Clayton for joining us for about 25, 30 minutes. The guy Clayton will always say, I got 20 minutes. He'll give you extra. We try not to abuse that, but he always does go longer. It's great.
He's a great guy. He's such a great guy. And I'll tell you what, if you're watching, tweet at Clayton and thank him for being on the show if you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, then
anything, but how can you not enjoy it? Talk too much again. That's happened a few times.
Yeah, so tweet at him and thank him, and tell your friends that you enjoyed the show tonight. Make sure to get the word out. I mean, the network is a little over 2 weeks old now, and we're just having a blast. And the more people, that's right, beyond the more people know about it, the better. The better for everybody, for us, and for the chat and the conversation. So.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I put out on Twitter, you might remember about 20 minutes ago, I was like, hey, I'm going to put out a tweet and be like, hey, I think we just confirmed that Ahsoka Tano is in the live act. Well, it's interesting. Clayton has confirmed that Ahsoka Tano is in the Mandalorian season 2. And he confirmed that back in March, which I'm pretty sure we even reported on. Like, I'm pretty sure on this show, we were like, yeah, Clayton Sandell says Ahsoka's happening. And so he just went ahead and reminded us all in a few different ways that he did confirm Ahsoka Tano is going to happen in the Mandalorian season 2. So really excited about all of that. A lot to be thankful for, Pete. I think that's what May the 4th always meant to me, was to be thankful for the stories that we have, the stories that we will receive, and the people we get to share those stories with. And that definitely includes you, my friend. Thankful for you and our friendship. Thankful for everyone who joined us in the live chat tonight.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. So if you enjoyed the show, tell somebody about it. Do you want to tell them about Patreon? We'll do just a tiny bit of business before we get out of here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. If you like what you saw tonight, if you like what you heard, you think it's really cool that we got a guest like Clayton to join us for about 25, 30 minutes, you want to help us make that possible to do even more in the future, then please consider supporting our Star Wars conversation on Patreon. It's a really cool platform to allow us to give more exclusive content to you, the fans, exclusive content. Like I said, we have giveaways, an opportunity for you to interact with your favorite personalities on the Beyond the Blast Doors network. Right now, for example, you can join our community on Patreon at the Grand Moff tier. It's $18. And you're like, well, $18, that's kind of steep. Okay, but let's break that down. By the show, it's only $3 per show on the Beyond the Blast Doors network. Because remember, it's not just BTBD Live and Around the Galaxy and streaming Star Wars, but you also get like the Bombadcast, you get Holo Chronicles, you get Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge. There's more shows in the works. We want to give you a complete Star Wars fan experience on the Beyond the Blast Doors network, and we're doing that as a team. We all have a different set of skills. We all fit in different niches in the Star Wars fandom, and we're having a lot of fun doing this. So you could consider the $18 tier. There's also the Director tier, Grand Admiral, the Sith Lord, and the Emperor. Right now, I'm at the Grand Admiral, I believe, and I will probably up it to the Grand Moff here in the very near future. Thank you, job promotion. But yes, free merch to rep your favorite shows and network, the opportunity to submit questions for the shows that you like the most. So if you want a show, let's say you have a question that you want specifically answered for streaming Star Wars, you're a Patreon member, your question always moves up to the front of the line. So we're always happy to give you kind of like a peek behind the curtain for future shows too. It's just some of the perks that you get by joining us on Patreon. And
yeah, I'll give an example. Just this past week, for Ion Cannon is one of our patrons, and I interviewed the biographer of George Lucas, Sir Brian J. Jones, and I put it up on the Patreon network, and people gave him the opportunity, and he submitted a question, and I asked him, and it got answered, and so look, we'll stop pushing it here. You get it, but there's perks and there's opportunities there, and if you can do it, great. If not, the only thing I ask, it doesn't, if you can't, that's perfectly all right. Just tell people about us. That's all I ask. Just tell people about the show if you're having fun.
Absolutely. I think it's most important that you know that our Star Wars conversation happens because you join us in this moment where it's Thursday night for BTBD Live, Friday night for streaming Star Wars, Tuesdays for Around the Galaxy. You have Holo Chronicles on Mondays. You got Bombad Cast on Saturdays. You got Postcards on Wednesday. More and more shows. We keep up filling the week. I think the goal is to have at least one show a day, just to always give you a fix. But at the core of it, we want you to be with us in the live chat. We want you to comment on our episode and hang out and continue that Star Wars conversation. Like, I know I'm kind of a hippie about it. Like, I'm always like, thanks for being part of our Star Wars conversation. It means a lot. Like, I love having friends across the country and the world. Like, meeting Shannon through the network has been really cool because she's this incredibly intelligent, gifted person that lives in the UK. I didn't have a friend really in the UK. I now have a friend in the UK. It's really exciting times to be David Amalati. So just really thankful that you're with us. Again, if you want to, I always think the best time to become a Patreon is while we're on air, just so we can shout you out and give you the kudos that you deserve. But you can be a Patreon anywhere. And again, if not, that's no problem. Just keep hanging out with us because we have a lot of fun with you.
Just hang. That's all we ask.
Hang. Just hang out with us. I feel like you need to continue. If you just say just hang, Pete, it gets
maybe you're right. Maybe that's a bad thing.
Just saying. But you're running the board tonight, so you do whatever the hell you want.
That's right. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can be like, hey, it's me. Or I can be like, hey, it's
large
David.
Mic flag has the largest microphone of the network, and he has got the biggest mic flag of the network. Look at that.
Of course.
Thing is girthy. Mine is humble. It's this little cute little thing. All
right. Now you're disturbing me just a little bit. Why don't we get out of here before we say something we regret?
We regret? It's too late for that. Hey, big thanks to everyone in the live chat. Thanks for joining us for streaming Star Wars episode 22. No, episode 28, right?
22.
22? Okay, I got excited. But still, 22 episodes is pretty impressive. Thought you would have killed me by now.
That's close.
You're such a jerk. Why do we always have to end every episode with me saying you're such a jerk?
I hate it when mom and dad fight.
It's like who shot first? It's Han. He's a jerk.
Yeah.
All right. Are you running the tag? Can we talk over the tag? Am I allowed to talk over the tag?
I think so.
Such a jerk.